or Book 101 all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She's a transformational psychology coach, confidence and relationship mentor, creator of the reclamation method, no other than Miss Tori Jenae.
Hello, Daniel.
Welcome, Miss Tori, on Book 101 review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Yeah, so I call myself a transformational psychology coach because I've kind of integrated a lot of different tools, but I have 3 psychology degrees and I am trained in energy healing and yoga and all kinds of meditation. And I've really taken Eastern philosophy, energy healing, and Western psychology, and I've merged them together to really help people heal. And I'm excited to be on this podcast because I am an avid reader and I love to learn. So I'm excited to talk about anything that comes up.
Yes, let's talk about why smart, self aware people self repeat same patterns in love and life. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Miss Tori. Thank you. So let's begin the the riddle. Well, the title's riddle presents the fascinating paradox. Fascinating paradox
Absolutely.
indeed. So just give me a minute. I have an echo. So, fascinating paradox. Smart, self aware people stuck in loops. What is the crucial distinction you make between cognitive awareness and kind of awareness required to break it?
Yeah, so that's a great distinction. There's cognitive awareness. So we know that we're doing something, but we usually see it after it happens. So I love to explain to people more about the nervous system and how that works. Basically, your brain, your spinal column, your nervous system all work together and they have taken in thousands of bits of information to keep you safe. Your number one job in life is to survive, not to thrive, not to do all the things that are easy. So I love to explain this in a way that is so easy to understand. All of us want to get healthier, go to the gym or work out or eat less, reduce our weight, do something to feel better about our body, right? And we will reduce how much we're eating, we'll exercise more, and we'll be really excited about that for the first couple of weeks, right? We're like, oh, I'm
Yes.
making a big change. I'm going to feel so good. I'm going to fit back in my jeans from high school. and then and then a couple weeks in, that motivation starts to wane and your brain starts to come up with all these little excuses. Oh, you're so tired. Oh, you're so hungry. You deserve a good treat. And we don't realize that subconscious programming, that nervous system programming is doing that because what the body registers and what the brain registers is this is different. This is not safe. It's not okay. What is survivable is known to us. So even if our patterns, our programs, our diet, our exercise, our relationship styles are not healthy for us, they are known and our body knows that we can survive them.
Mm.
So we get hard on ourselves when we start working. Like I love to use the example of working out because we've all experienced that. We start to slip, we start to have these negative thoughts, we start to get late, like we think we're lazy. That's just the brain saying, hey, I don't feel safe because I've reduced calories, I'm working out, something's wrong, like this person is trying to kill me. But that's what happens even with love, with work, all these kinds of things. What happens is, so let's say, I grew up in a very toxic household and I always share that, like most of my wisdom comes from my lived experience, not just my psychology degrees. And if I have an absent father, then that subconsciously makes me believe that love is having an absent person in my life. So that would make me go after the emotionally unavailable partner. And so even though, and I work with smart, self-aware, brilliant people all the time, and they're kind of like not aware of this deeper subconscious programming because it runs 90% of our life. And until we get into that subconscious, until we really understand what caused those patterns and how it's playing out, of a lack of it's really like body awareness, nervous system, and subconscious lack of awareness. So you can be brilliant, you can see all your patterns kind of, or even have done years of therapy and still not see that change because you haven't dropped it yet into your energy, into your body, and you haven't solved the problem that the psyche is trying to solve. So like I said, with love relationships in particular, we will try to have a different ending. So if we had a critical parent, let's say, we'll find a critical partner and we'll hope that they will actually give us praise
Mm.
because our brain wants a happy ending to the old story, if that makes sense. So hopefully I answered your question in a way bigger way than you expected.
Makes sense. Makes sense, Miss Tori. So, the why versus the how. Many people can brilliantly analyze why they have the pattern. And why does this intellectual understanding so often fail to translate into behavioral change, and what gets missed?
Yes. So a lot of times we try to think our way out of it, and we actually need to feel our way out of things and become the observer of ourself, not just from a self-awareness of I see my pattern, but a self-awareness that is there's a difference between like cognitive perception and what we call interoception. So I can look back and see my pattern, but can I catch myself when I'm about to react negatively to my partner? Can I catch myself by a bodily sense, by feeling what's happening, by being aware of that and stopping myself, saying, oh, this is my pattern in the moment. This is me saying yes to another date with the wrong guy. This is me yelling at my kids. This is me not speaking my truth at work again. And so it's really a felt sense. We kind of repress a lot of what we feel. And so I always tell people there's the ABCs of change. We have to have the awareness, and that's internal awareness too. Then what do I believe and how do I breathe through it? And then I can start to make the conscious choice to make a different choice. Like I remember the first time with my husband that I really recognized I was going to have a negative response or I was going to like start an argument. I was able to pause and say, oh, I feel that in my stomach. I feel that old pattern of being reactive or being defensive. And now I can actually stop it. So I always say, get out of your head, get into your body. And one of my favorite quotes is the longest journey that we will ever take is the 18 inches from our head to our heart.
Very well said, Ms. Tori. Very well said. The neurology of rats. From brain science perspective, how do we well-known neural pathways and the brain's efficiency bias actively work against our conscious desire to change even when we know better?
That's a good one. So, neural pathways, think of them as like well worn trails. Like if you're in a really thick forest, your neural pathways are really well worn trails. So, the brain actively defaults to them. So, if my habit, like let's say you want to give up sugar for the new year, you're trying to eat healthier, you're trying to ask for a raise, but your old pathways are very strong. So it's what I like to call the path of least resistance, and it gives us the most reward even if we don't like it. And so that new pathway we have to fight a lot more with ourselves, and so willpower will not work here. It takes small change over time. So I love to tell my clients change 1% one direction at the end of the year. If you do that every week, you'll have 50% improvement. So it's never going to be like a perfect thing. But when I'm starting that new neural pathway, I'm going to have to repeat it often. And I'm going to have to make it small enough changes to where my brain does not fight me. And so with rats, they're pretty simple creatures. We can put out lots of stimuli that tells us that they do this or they do that. Do they choose the cocaine water? Do they choose the sugar water? Like, but we're so much more complex. so so for us, it's like, how do I make a small decision every day that keeps creating that new path? So I'll give a funny example. Like when I wanted to start lifting weights, I knew that would be really uncomfortable for me. I'd always done yoga and Pilates and walking, very light things. I literally started with 1 day a week because I knew that all my excuses would come up. I'm sore, it's hard, I don't know what I'm doing. Um, Lifting is for men, all these negative thoughts, right? That are just normal because I was uncomfortable. And so I kept going back. I got a trainer. I went once a week. I did that for 3 months until that became a habit. Then for the next 3 months, I did it twice a week. Now I love lifting weights. I go 3 to 4 times a week when I'm feeling good.
Interesting, Miss Tori. Let's talk about the identity trap. How do our patterns become woven into our identity? For example, the person who
Mm.
identifies the rescuer or the independent one, how does the self concept make changing the pattern feel like betrayal of self?
Yeah, so identity work is very hard and it's very deep. A lot of us don't see that we have an identity. And I can relate with the rescuer. That's definitely an identity I've always had. I help people, I heal people, all those kinds of things. But what those identities do is they lead us to patterns of behavior that are not always healthy. So the helper, the rescuer, I can say from personal experience, ends up helping and rescuing to our own detriment, meaning we betray ourselves in the identity because I might overgive to people thinking that that's what I'm supposed to do. If I'm the tough one or I'm hyper independent, that I can never ask for anyone to help. And if I do, I feel like I'm betraying myself. But both things lack true authenticity. So it's really breaking down where does my identity allow me to connect to others and allow me to thrive, and where is it actually holding me back? Because every single identity has a powerful part, like a light side and a shadow side. And so it's really understanding, like, how are you identifying with that? One of the darkest ways I see identity show up is through illness. This is Everybody kind of knows someone in their life who has an illness, and it's become their identity. You ask them how they are and they talk about their symptoms and they talk about, like, I'm living with this. And of course it's very difficult, but we have to recognize that I am a person outside of that, outside of being a mom, a housewife, a mother, or a worker. We get very entrenched in what we do as to who we are. Who you are transcends all of those things. And until you connect with that true, authentic person that is beyond all the masks, all the identities, all the things that your parents said you should be, you don't actually really know yourself. And you're going to always respond in a way that it may not make you happy. And that kind of goes back to our getting back into those old patterns or self-sabotage or all those kinds of things. It's because I'm not, if I'm a people pleaser, I'm not allowed to be happy. I'm not allowed to speak up. That's just who I am. And so anytime you say that to yourself, that's just who I am, that's your red flag that you're stuck in identity.
Well, Miss Tori, the secondary gain. Even painful patterns often serve hidden purpose, providing sense of familiarity, protecting from a deeper fear, or fulfilling unmet need. What is the common example of secondary gain that locks the smart person in place?
Oh, that's so good. Secondary gains are really tricky. And I've actually experienced it in my life. There was a time when I was struggling with a stress related illness called adrenal insufficiency. It's where it's Addison's disease. And I remember when I wanted to heal it, I remember asking myself, okay, Tori, like, be really honest with yourself right now. What are you getting out of this? And I realized it was allowing me to set boundaries with people. It was allowing me to say no when I wanted to say no instead of feeling guilty or obligated that I should say yes if I was a good person. And it was also it was allowing me to ask my husband for more support around the house. So those were the secondary gains. So children, it's easier to see in them because, like, we know that sometimes kids act out in a negative way, but it's because some attention is better than no attention. So everything we do, there is a gain from it, even if it feels negative. Like, even fighting with someone, we think, oh, that's so, like, I got in a fight with my partner and I feel so bad about it. But there is a secondary gain because maybe you have a need to repair, or you want someone to fight for you, or or you feel loved that way, or you also get the cortisol spike, which is what we call the inner pharmacy, and people can actually be addicted to that. So secondary gains is anything that you gain from what you perceive as a possible negative behavior that is something that you're actually gaining. And it's very tricky. But I always have my clients look at that when it comes to illness or changing patterns. So it's like, if I'm a people pleaser, it's like, okay, what am I getting out of that? Like, okay, I'm a bit, I'm able to avoid conflict. I'm able to feel like everyone likes me, so those are like hopefully enough examples to explain secondary gains.
Very well said, Miss Tori. Very well said. So let's talk about the repetition compulsion from a psychodynamic view. We sometimes unconsciously seek to recreate and master our old ones. How does this play out in adult relationship patterns, and how can we become conscious of it?
Of an addictive component to it. And so that means that some way we're kind of getting needs met. So the way I kind of see this is I work a little bit different with it. When I see repetition or compulsion in someone where it's like they can't stop themselves, I know there's actually a deeper positive need under that. So I usually look for, why do I keep repeating this behavior? Why am I so compulsive? It might be as simple as, I'm looking on my phone all the time. I'm on Instagram 4, 6 hours a day because I've had clients have this, right? And what I know they're deep down looking for is connection. And so when they're picking up that phone, they're getting a little bit of a dopamine spike. I've literally have clients who are very smart. You know, I had a guy who's a really smart business owner here in Los Angeles. He couldn't stop looking at his phone. Like he loved TikTok, Instagram, you name it. And he was just like, I cannot stop myself from, I pick up my phone like 400 times a day. And when we started just interrupting the pattern a little bit and trying to find what was the core need under that compulsion, I find a lot of times, 9 out of 10, it is we are missing love, connection, and positive interaction.
So, Miss Tori, as a psychology coach as well as a mentor, what are your short term and long term goals?
Oh gosh, short term goals and is to travel more, or I guess that's the long term goal. But short term would be, I'm finishing working on a book. So that is exciting. I want to write a kind of a guide to healing. I've been through a lot in my life. I've lost both my parents, my sister, both my parents were drug addicts. I've definitely lived a lot of experiences that I decided to share how to really heal those things at a deeper level. And I guess long term is to keep traveling, keep growing, and keep helping as many people as I can on the planet.
Hmm. Keep traveling. Good luck to your goals, Miss Tori, and looking forward for more success. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be a coach, who want to be a mentor as well?
I always say find that thing in your life that you've walked through the fire successfully, you've transformed, and you can guide other people. And then also get some kind of training or understanding or knowledge just so that you have a good container, a good understanding of how to guide other people in a way. Because sometimes great experts have learned how to do something themselves. Maybe they've built a business, maybe they've gotten really healthy, but when we go to help others, we've got to find a way that can be translated and molded into many, many forms because every person is unique. Everyone has a different journey, and one size never fits all. And I always say, run away from anyone who tells you they have all the answers because no one on the planet does.
Well, thank you for that advice, Miss Tori. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Yeah, some books that I would love to recommend would be, first would be Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. That is such a deep and interesting read, but it really, I think that was one of the books that was really part of my more spiritual awakening for that. I think if you want to start doing your psychological work, there's a great book called How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole LaPera is a great book for that. And gosh, there's so many books I could recommend, but I think those are two that. Oh, another one, if you're really interested in going deep on love relationships, then I would say How to Get the Love You Want. And that is based on imago therapy. But I could probably list books all day long because I used to have an entire library of them. I tried to cut down. But yeah, those would be three great ones to start with.
Thank you for the recommended books, Miss Tori. Thank you, thank you. So let's talk about the relationships as a mirror. Once someone starts doing this work, how do the existing relationships often react? What does it mean when the old patterns no longer fits a dynamic?
Yeah, sometimes it will break a relationship, and that's what a lot of people are afraid of. That's why they don't want to change. But I've seen that a lot of times when we heal, we also help the other person heal. And as we elevate, a lot of times our partners will elevate with us. Sometimes they cannot. Every time you change, there's always going to be a little bit of pushback from the other person. That's a normal part, but they usually, like, let's say you have a difficult relationship with your mother and you start setting boundaries with her, and then she makes you feel guilty and makes you feel bad. And a lot of people give up at that point. But if you kind of push through the pain of that, it will shift and you'll actually help your mother connect to you in a more meaningful way. If you're trying to change yourself in an old relationship pattern where you and your partner always end up arguing, if you don't participate in that anymore, they may still initially want to go into that old pattern. But as you break it, it starts to break in the relationship. And what's beautiful is I've worked with so many people where I've seen their relationships improve across the board because they did the internal work to shift themselves. And they were so scared to let go of those patterns because it's like, well, if I'm not a people pleaser anymore, or if I set boundaries, or if I say no, I'm going to ruin all my relationships. And time again, over the last 14 years of my practice, I've only seen the opposite. And sometimes the people who need to go do go. So I will say that. But it's not because it was a good relationship to start with.
Go, definitely go. Let it go, people. So, Ms. Tori, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast because my abstract essay is already in sixth season, abstract poetry in third season, and of course my book 101 review in sixth season as well, comedy 101 in third season, and food 101 in sixth season too, geography 101 love letters, movie 101 review, music 101 are fifth season, science 101, sex 101 at sixth season, trivia 101, law 101, mental health 101, motivation 101, entrepreneurship 101, of course bible verses 101 are my baby podcasts. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Tori, is the goal to completely eradicate these tendency or to develop a loving, observant relationship with them so they no longer run the show? What does success look like?
I think it's actually both. It's when we develop that love and understanding and compassion for ourselves, a lot of the negative patterns start to become eradicated. And I always tell people that healing doesn't look like things just stop, but they get better. So maybe something used to upset you for days and days. Now it upsets you for hours, and then it upsets you for half an hour. But that is the healing journey. Or if you used to have an old reaction or response that you're trying to get rid of, it's like seeing that and in that moment saying, even though I'm responding this way again, I deeply love and accept myself. Like I
Mm.
have my clients do that. They get really annoyed, but it works. I do it myself too. It's like, okay, even though I'm doing this again, I love and accept myself. I see that I'm doing it. And when we go into shame or guilt, like it doesn't help us change. One of my teachers always used to say, if shame and guilt worked, if beating ourselves up worked, we would all be rich, thin, and happy. So
Mm.
it doesn't work. Try accepting yourself, not in a way of like, I accept this negative behavior, but I accept that I do this. And I accept that if I stop resisting it, it will probably stop persisting.
Yeah, so Miss Tori, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your business, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, I would love to connect with people. My name is it's torijenae.com. So pretty simple to find me. On Instagram, tori.jenae, which is Jenae. And I do group coaching 1-to-1. And I also have some great freebies on my website. If you want to learn about your subconscious or psychological blocks, there's a great book that is for free on my website.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Tori Jenae because if you support her for sure, more and more empowering advocacy like this to rise. So I have one more question, Ms. Tori. If someone is listening, nodding along, feeling seen but also overwhelmed, what is the one small non-negotiable commitment you would ask them to make themselves starting today?
If they felt overwhelmed, I would say take a walk, take a deep breath, call someone, and just know that nothing negative lasts forever. And in this moment, find that you are safe.
Mm, yes. If you need help, people ask for help. Ask Miss Tori. Call Miss Tori. Miss Tori Jenae, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. You had great questions. I can tell you did your homework. You had the most psychologically sound
I want,
interview I've ever had.
yes, I want to highlight that every single episode that I'm doing, I want to highlight my guests. And you did it. You nailed it, Miss Tori. Thank you so much for your empowering answer.
Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.